We're back from break, and today's guest is John DeFries, CEO of Hokulia on the Big Island, Hawaii, and President and CEO of Native Sun Business Group.
Tell me what you thought on what Governor Burns said as that, silent sense of insecurity, or however he said it. This kind of feeling that a lot of people born and raised here have this somewhat of an inferiority complex. Did you have that?
Yeah, well, I can cite you a clear example. In the first weeks of going to school, I was embarrassed of our family car. But I didn't know how to tell my father that. And so I would make excuses to have my father drop us off down at that time it was called Chink Store on Alexander Street. So rather than driving us into the campus, that's where I would do it. And then later, I realized that was, later being like a couple weeks, couple months later, I realized that was really not right. And I got comfortable with it. But I can remember initially feeling like our car was inferior. Or like, you're in the 8th grade, you're dealing with all these kind of things, right? So, yeah, I do believe that that it's easy for island people to feel somewhat separate, and maybe at certain times that translates into inferiority. But the flip side of that is we are separate. There is something special about that separateness. There's a whole legacy of growing up in communities like ours and the multi-ethnicity that it's comprised of, that I think makes us better prepared in some cases to face the world. And I would just hope that we're able to impart that, my generation's able to impart that to the next generations, that there's no reason to feel second or take the back seat, and have a greater appreciation for the whole, but also have a greater appreciation for the courage and the boldness that it takes to lead and to assert yourself. In many cases, it goes back to the earlier conversation about the dilemma as a Native Hawaiian and land use. At some point, I had to feel whole, I had to feel good about the decisions I was making as a being, as a total being. And that's the gift that comes from being pushed like that, and being challenged, as opposed to just being able to sit back and skate your way through it. So those kinds of life experiences are really vital right now. And frankly, as we spoke about earlier, the island, the nation, the world has a higher demand for that kind of leadership today.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for joining us today on Greater Good Radio. For more information or a transcript of today's show, please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. This is your host, Evan Leong and Carrie Leong, saying please join us next time for another episode of Greater Good Radio, Hawaii.